Good evening and welcome to Chasing the Facts. I'm Sam Chase, your host, and this is the first in a series of political campaign shows. We are just starting our political season in Chelmsford for the upcoming local election on April 2nd, and I will be hosting a series of 3, possibly 4, candidate roundtable discussions. And first off is the Select Board. We have a race for the position of Select Board. We have 2 open seats, and we have 3 candidates running for 2 open seats. So before we get into the formalities of it, I'd just like to give the 3 folks here an opportunity to greet each other and say hello. And if you want to make any comments among yourselves, I'll give you 2 seconds to do that, and then we'll get into the formal part of the show. So,
well, great to be here with you too, Aaron. Appreciate it, and George, good to see you.
I'd like to congratulate both of you for stepping up to contend for the office. I wish more people would do it for all the races. I think that's something that could really benefit the town. The more people get involved, better it's going to be for everybody. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, it's something I want to talk about later on, but I think it's one of the weak points of the town. We almost didn't have a race here. We almost didn't have a race in school committee. We got a $160 million budget. I'm not trying to take all, but you know what I'm saying? That's right. And then people complain, and you go out and you're a bad guy because you did the wrong thing. Well, they had a chance to get up here and say something. They never did. So.
And I appreciate the opportunity. I feel like I'm sitting amongst a lot of experience here, and I consider it a privilege to be here.
You just called us old.
And I look forward to...
nicely, though.
I did do it nicely, hopefully. I look forward to our discussion today and sharing with you gentlemen who I am and why I'm doing this, and hopefully let the voters know. So again, I look forward to the discussion today.
Great. Well, thank you very much. So why don't we start off with some introductions. And I guess age and service has its privilege, so we'll start off with an introduction for our veteran incumbent selectman, George Dixon. George has served the town of Chelmsford as a select board member since 2009, but is a son of Chelmsford, having lived in town his entire life and raising his 2 children with his late wife, Terry. As a third-generation resident, George loves nothing more than helping people and making a positive impact on the town. He's a proud graduate of Chelmsford High School and UMass Lowell, and is now a member of the CHS Alumni Association and an inductee into the CHS Hall of Fame. George is running for a 6th term because of his dedication to the community he loves. In addition to his duties on the Select Board, George's liaison assignments have included the Lowell Regional Transit Authority, Permanent Building Committee, 3 water departments, and the Capital Planning Committee, to name a few, from which he gained experience managing many challenging and fulfilling situations. He also led the effort to pass a split tax rate to help benefit the residents. A talented athlete in 4 sports, George advocated for sports and recreation for kids with disabilities through board involvement at the Paul Center and the Knights of Columbus. He taught golf to youth at the Greater Lowell Boys and Girls Club and coached Little League and Babe Ruth, and continues to be a big supporter of Pop Warner and the Boosters. He is proud that he was chair and a major fundraiser for the committee that brought the commercial turf fields to town, and has a place in his heart and supports breast cancer and Alzheimer's awareness. He's running for a 6th term so he can continue his good work, and respectfully asks for a vote on Election Day, Tuesday, April 2nd. Pat?
Thank you, Sam. Hello, my name's Patrick Maloney, and as a candidate for the Chelmsford Select Board, I'd be honored to receive one of your 2 votes for Select Board in the important upcoming local election to be held on Tuesday, April 2nd. I believe I am one of the better choices to serve on the Select Board. As someone deeply invested in the welfare and prosperity of Chelmsford, I'm committed to upholding our town's values and working tirelessly to ensure its continued success. My history consists of, for the past 34 years, I've owned and operated and been CEO of a Chelmsford-based construction management firm. We specialize in pharmaceutical and biotech work. We employ about 25 people in the design and engineering and building of advanced facilities for these large corporations in Massachusetts. So for over 20 years now, I've been had the privilege of serving on numerous building committees within our town, and during this time, I've worked diligently and used my experience to oversee projects from conception to completion, consistently delivering results that saved our community millions of dollars. Through careful planning, effective management, and dedication to fiscal responsibility, I've been able to bring these projects in on time and on budget, providing essential infrastructure and facilities to our residents while being mindful of taxpayer dollars. I've learned the need for fiscal constraint, how to weather economic downturns and make progress in the face of adversity. This experience has been used by me for the Chelmsford taxpayers on 2 school building committees, the Fire DPW Study Committee, the Chelmsford Permanent Building Committee, and in addition to that, I've also provided owner's project management services for a couple of projects here in town wherein we saved the town money because I did the project management services for no fees. So we've saved the town at least a couple $100,000 that way. So it is for those reasons I believe I'm uniquely qualified to join and be a member of the Chelmsford Chelmsford Select Board.
Don't worry, I make that mistake all the time. You know.
Yeah, well,
It
it's
it takes a
ingrained
long
for
time.
years.
Exactly. Aaron?
So again, thank you, Sam, for hosting us today, and thank you for Pat and George welcoming me to the table. Unlike Pat and George, I'm a relatively new resident at a mere 6 years, although like most people in our town, we like to have some claim to longevity here, and I have that through my better half, Alicia, who is a longtime teacher, 20 plus years at Center School, and even though we lived out of town, our 3 children have attended school here since day one, including being a part of the inaugural class at Lions Pride when it was initially just for the in-town teachers. So we built our community around Alicia working here and the kids going to school here. We were never really part of our community outside of town. And I currently serve as a precinct rep, precinct 9 town meeting rep, and I've definitely learned a lot through that. I've served on a couple of committees. I was chair of the recycling committee for a while. I worked on what was then the energy conservation committee that's now changed. I'm very proud to have served on the visions and values committee. I'm very proud when we walk into any one of our buildings and see those posted, and I was recently selected to be on the strategic planning committee, and I think that that's an important document for us to have going forward. So, my service is not long, but I made a point to get involved early when we got here because I knew that our intention was to be here for quite a while. I currently work as an independent consultant. I did that for the last 5 or 6 years. Before that, I had a 20-year career in working for public and privately held companies and doing strategic planning and doing the business side of what the select board does on a municipal side. I am also now a former small business owner. I owned a small retail beer and wine shop and a 125-seat restaurant. Both of those have now moved on to either closure or to other owners. And I think that is what has allowed me the time that I know it's going to take, if elected, to the select board to put into it. So like Pat and George, I look forward to your vote on April 2nd, and I look forward to the discussion that we're going to have today.
Great. Well, thank you very much. Obviously, we have 3 folks running for the position. All of you have extensive experience, all of which I think is relevant to the job that you seek. So I think the town will be well served however the election turns out. So again, thank you for being here. Let's get into the discussion. the first question that I would ask you all, and you've answered it sort of in your opening statements, but what has at this point motivated you to seek the office? And in George's case, why do you want to do another term? Because some would say, George, 5 terms.
It'd be crazy.
Exactly. Most people would say, that's it, I'm done. So, Pat, we'll start with you.
Well, for the most part, Sam, you know, I've been involved for a long time in town on various committees, as I stated. So, you know, I'm starting to move into semi-retirement. You know, I've built my business over the years, and my business will go on and keep running for a long time to come. And I have very good people running that business. So I think I have the time to devote to this important role in the town. There's, you know, having served for so long in town, I have a good sense of what is going on in town. We have a potential for 2 large projects coming here down the road, a potential fire department project and a potential school project. And because of my volunteerism in town and my business experience and things, I really think that I can contribute to this board and to the town in those aspects.
Good. Aaron?
You know, the decision to run for select board in particular was made late for a couple of different reasons. So having been involved in town and primarily a finance background, you know, I had been looking for an opportunity through John to join the finance committee at some point a few years ago. And as time went on and I kind of got out of that day-to-day finance grind, I realized, you know, I'm good at the more overarching aspect of business versus finance, and I didn't necessarily want to do that. However, 2 openings came up, and I looked at that opportunity. For a long time, I've had an interest in school committee, just with school-age children. However, you know, there'd be opportunities that I would have to recuse myself if I were to join the school committee and get elected because of Alicia's position. And I feel like recusing myself from any of the work, even if it was only parts of it, is not something that would do the town and the board a service. So, you know, the other opportunity that I saw was select board. I probably hesitated a little bit because I really needed to think about, am I ready? I mean, I'm sitting next to 2 people that have a tremendous wealth of experience and history in the town. And I said, you know, A, I'm ready. B, I have the time. And then I think I can offer something a little bit different in terms of maybe bridging that gap. So even though I have ties to the community, I'm relatively new. And in just the last 6 years, I've seen influx of new people. So I think I have enough knowledge about what's going on in town or know enough people to be able to reach out where I need to be educated, but I also feel I can bring a fresher voice or another voice to the town. I shouldn't say fresher, that's not fair. You know, I know that this is a significant time commitment. I know it requires outreach, and I think that's one of the things I'm looking forward most, even just in this process, because obviously coming in late and being a little unknown, I got a lot of phone calls and a lot of questions right away. The opportunity to tell people a little bit about myself and where I think this town is going, especially as Pat said, a couple of major projects on the horizon. And maybe we discuss this later on, but you know, Chelmsford right now is I think from a financial perspective in good shape, but we've just come through an incredible inflationary environment. So costs are up and revenues are, there's not a whole lot there to tap at the moment. So I think having that kind of finance background is going to be helpful, because I think we're going to need to seek ways to raise revenue without burdening the current taxpayers, and we need to find ways to continue to make the appropriate investments without breaking the budget. So I feel I definitely bring something a little bit different, and and hopefully that's something that will appeal to folks.
Good, thank you. George, you're coming at this from a little bit different perspective because you've actually done the job for, let's see, 15 years, is that right?
15 years.
15 years, so,
Well, it's almost become like part of my life, especially the last 2 years. But I mean, most of the time, it's almost like a full-time job for me now. And I enjoy it very much. I've met so many nice people. I've learned a lot. I've worked with almost everybody in town on different committees. And I just, it's just, I'd like to see the town, I think we have some problems coming up, and I'd like to hang in here. I've got some projects that I've been working on for people, that need to be finished. So that's part of the reason I'm hanging in there, and I have the time now. I have a lot more time than I had before, and I just love doing it. So, and I get a lot of calls. I mean, because I've been there so long. I do get calls. I mean, but if you probably would ever be the same thing. I'm not trying to say, I ain't different than anybody else, but I make myself available. And I'm approachable, and if I can help you, I'll help you. And if I can't help you, I'll tell you I can't help you, and for what reasons. But and I'm getting a little bit off here, but part of the reason to stay on is because of some of the things that we've heard from the governor's office and the projections on financing for this year, which could be one of our most difficult years since my very first year back in 2009 when the town was in a very tough year. So I'm hoping that they're all wrong and something happens and these projects that Pat talked about can come into fruition, and whatever Aaron's whatever ideas Aaron has can come through, and I think it's great that we're getting additional information from and thoughts from other people. Like I said earlier, I'm glad that more people should step up. So I'd like to be part of bringing more people into the town, into the government as well. So.
okay, well, that's well said, and that kind of leads, I'm just going to jump around here because we'll kind of play off what we say. We've all mentioned the situation that the town, we think, will be facing within the next fiscal year in terms of, as you said, a flat revenue stream. But the town manager, I think, made it very clear and has made it very clear. I've heard the presentation 3 times now, so I think I've got it, that we're going to be all right for the upcoming year, but the following year, we're looking at some serious shortfalls in town budget-wise. The town of Westford is already ringing the bell on that, as is the town of Drake. They're talking about actual personnel reductions in Westford at this point. And let's remember, Westford is a wealthier town than Chelmsford, both from the standpoints of property valuation and per capita income. So, and they've been a reasonably well-managed town. So if they're seriously looking at potential shortfalls, I think we can expect the same, and I certainly commend the town manager for ringing the bell early. Okay, so with that as a backdrop, how do you folks feel about the town's budget profile? Do you think the right priorities are being addressed, and are they being addressed sufficiently? Do you think we spend too much money? Do you think we spend too little money? Do you think we should spend more money? And just generally, what do you think the town's priorities should be from the standpoint of budgeting and operations? So I'll start with you, Aaron.
Yes, thanks, Sam. I think again, as I said before, I think revenue is going to be a challenge, and right now we can't ask people or businesses to really contribute a whole lot more because I don't think that the dollars are there. So we really need to find a way to increase that incoming revenue, that basis, and I do know, through asking a few questions through town hall that, we still do have, and I know it's been hard to address even in the years that I've been here, but we still have square footage here that we can fill with businesses, which is additive to the tax base. And I think there needs to be a continued focus on that. I think we need to start driving a more business friendliness and not just assuming that those businesses are going to add problems like traffic and congestion and those types of things. The square footage is fairly well concentrated in a few spots. On the spending side, where I started out my finance career as being an analyst in cost spending and finding ways to make savings, there's nothing in town. I mean, obviously, I look at some of those line items and I say, why do they spend it that way? But nothing that's going to move the needle. I think, we've made the choices, and the board that hires Paul has made, Manager Cohen's made those choices on how the spending is going to occur. I think our challenge is we need to start recognizing that we need to make sure that we have the must-haves, and we're going to have to start shedding the nice-to-haves. And I don't know how much of that slack is in the budget for that, but we're going to be making tough decisions. We're going to not be able to make certain investments, I think, until we get through this. I do think the benefit is we do have a sizable, well-funded rainy day fund. So for some of those ebbs and flows, we should be able to absorb it. But I think it's not a one budget line item. We need to look across the board. We need to start thinking about what the must-haves are versus the nice-to-haves. And then we need to figure out, we really do need to earnestly figure out a way to grow the tax base without putting it on the residents that are already squeezed and without putting it on the local businesses that I think are probably where they're tapped out a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So,
George, you got perspective on that?
Well, what the scary part is, when you talk about it, Westford's already in there. They've already declared that they're in trouble. I mean, they have a lot less services than we have. They don't have storage. They have, their real estate values are much higher. So, they have less employees. So, I mean, if they're in trouble, what does that leave us? Now, the thing that's probably saved us a little bit is the ARPA money we received this year. We probably got rid of a lot of problems that, before we had to reach into our own coffers. We do have a stabilization fee of $23 million, but we got a budget of $160 million. So I think we're gonna have to look at this more, rather than a municipality, as more of a private business. I mean, we're gonna have to look and maybe not replace some of the people who may be retiring, or maybe look at some costs. I mean, when you're in this business, you have to make some tough decisions. And, in the end, you're making them for the taxpayer. The taxpayer, we work for the taxpayer. I mean, people have the misconception, some people, that the selectmen are the boss. We serve the people. The people run, we're doing this for the people. I mean, we're trying to do the right thing. But we're going to have to make hard cuts, and right as soon as you make your first vote, you're going to lose 50% of your friends, I think. You know what I mean? It's just the way it goes. I mean, and hopefully we'll get lucky. But the first words out of the first messages coming from the governor's office is it's going to be very, very, very low in our funding this year, our state aid. And especially it'd be tougher because especially coming after last year, where we got a little bit more than normal, particularly with the Chapter 70 money with the schools.
Yeah, we got more than 3 times what we normally
get. Yes,
yeah.
Right. And now all of a sudden, if he's going to go right back to square one, I don't know. So I think that we all together have a difficult situation from what the projections are at the moment. We got 2 or 3 months to figure it out, but that goes by quickly,
It certainly does.
Sure does.
Any thoughts, Pat?
Well, there's no easy answer to whether the town spending is too much, too little, or just about right. But in my mind and in my opinion is it has to be just right for where we are today. And I say that because, and we've had this discussion, we've all had this discussion over the years of, okay, we got to cut the budget. What do you cut? We've been living with level funded budgets for years, probably since 2009 and earlier even. Okay, so this goes on. So we've been behind the eight ball for a long, long time here, and it's there's just no easy answer. I think what this is going to take is a out of the box thinking approach and realigning our thoughts on how to move into the future and deal with the progress that's going to force us to grow and take care of our business. And I call it progress because we're going to be forced into progressing in technological aspects, in educational aspects. There's many various things that are coming down the pike in the future that we may or may not have a good read on right here today. But it's time we need to start looking forward to that. So is there an easy answer for this question right here today? I think it's just right because it has to be just right because we would hurt ourselves if we cut something. We'd love to see an increase in the budget. I'd love to see an increase in the budget. And it's encouraging when we see an increase in capital spending, which we've seen a little bit of, but it's not covering all the bases, and it can't possibly cover all the bases. So right here today, I think it's just right because I can't think of anything or imagine anything being cut. I can't possibly imagine adding or increasing the budget much more than what our obligations require. So it's really, I think, taking a teamwork approach and looking at out-of-the-box thinking to try to define what potentially is coming our way and then how do we potentially fund these things and move the town forward to take care of the inevitable change and progress that is coming.
Okay, good enough. And I made a mistake when I started to ask the question, so just allow me a moment here to explain to the viewers. I probably should have qualified my question a little bit by explaining that about 60% of the town's budget is administered by the school department, which also includes Neshoba Valley Technical Regional School. So the select board, the town manager, don't really have any control over approximately 60% of the town budget. And I think the viewers need to put that in perspective when listening to your answers. And I'm sorry, I should have said that before I started. So I think but that also kind of leads into another question. And I've been involved in town government now for about 30 years, so I've heard just about everything from residents and how they feel about things. And of course, regardless of how well the town is managed, how prudent the budget is, and how well administered, most people think that their taxes are too high. Okay? I'm sure you've heard that, George, a few times.
Couple times.
Yeah. Yeah. So. How do you deal with that? How do you deal with the perception in the public that their taxes are too high and the town, whatever that means, should be doing something about that? Okay, and that is a very real issue that when you get on the board, George has heard it, but you folks, Aaron and Pat, if you are elected to the board, you're going to hear this all the time. And you're going to get bombarded with the town wastes money, my taxes are too high, something has to be done. So with that mindset and what I just said about the school department having 60% of the budget, and the thought that I have heard over the last 2 or 3 years from some select board members even, that the selectmen really should have a little bit more control over some of the operational aspects of the town and as it relates to dealing with other boards and so forth. How do you reconcile all that? Do you think that the select board should take more of an initiative in driving some of these issues, or do you see that they're too constrained by provisions of the charter? How do you view that whole relationship of the select board with regard to the other operational aspects of the town. So, Pat, thoughts on that?
It's a good question, Sam. It takes a village, right? So I'm trying to think of the best way to say this, but I think each board has a job to do, and we should let them do it. I think the process of the select board should be a sounding board for various committees and lending support for approved initiatives, but also sorting out the various positions and taking all of that information and basically determining the best overall action for the town moving forward, whatever that may be. So do I think that the board should take more of a role? Let's face it, the select board's a policy board. So they're there to initiate new policies, provide guidance and goals for the town administration. But there has to be a CEO and there has to be a board. So I believe in letting people do their job. I think it's important to let them do their job, but I think the select board's responsibility really is to be the aggregator of all of that information and then try to formulate a best situation to move the town forward in whatever that situation may be. So I don't think that it requires more power or anything like that, or I think it's just more of initiating a teamwork attitude and working with the rest of the boards to really try to tackle these problems that are coming. So it's all about teamwork, and it takes a village, and that's where we need to get back to, and not be working in individual silos and such. So.
So I think Pat was spot on, right? The select board is we set the policy, right, based on what the constituents and the businesses and the residents are looking for, and we hire that CEO and the town manager, and we ought to be driving that CEO to run the business, so to speak, the municipality, to the best of his or her ability, and reach the goals that we set or overachieve those goals. And I agree also that, each of these boards, especially the elected ones, need to have the ability to do their jobs without being constrained. I would like to see, just because so much of the budget is out of the control, and the school committee doesn't get calls for the budget. Right now it's George, right? Potentially Pat or I. And I know there's meetings and there's finance and school committee meetings and select board. I know everybody gets together occasionally, but especially going into what hopefully, as George has said, will not happen but could possibly happen, where we have some budget constraints. I think there does need to be a little bit more solid alignment and connection, and even potentially some budgeting decision-making that occurs between the select board, the 40%, and the school committee, the 60%. Because if the schools, which again, in full disclosure, my wife's paid by the schools and my kids utilize the schools, if that spending keeps going up, it's got to come from somewhere because the revenue is capped. So I think that board in particular and the select board, I'd like to see, and I haven't been a part of the process in all candidness, so maybe it's more there than I think it is, but I think those two things need to be balanced out a little bit better. And in terms of the other boards, here's what I've learned a lot, especially with some of the planning board meetings that I've connected with recently. There's a lot of discussion on who's responsible for what. So I know there's board liaisons, and I know that's part of your job to go sit in.
Which is why I asked the question.
I'm thinking
Right.
that, and again, I don't have that day-to-day experience that George has right now, or some of the experience that Pat has in serving on all these boards. But I sat there last night with the in the back with the board liaison to observe that meeting, and it feels like maybe those liaisons need to have a little bit more, instead of just sitting in the audience and taking notes and discussing afterwards, maybe being a little bit more upfront. And I know in talking with some of those board members, there is a desire to start having better communication amongst all these guys, because planning board makes critical decisions that ultimately potentially affect the finances of the town, which we're going to get calls on. So I would definitely strive for more coordination if and where it's lacking today.
Okay. George, any thoughts?
It's ironic that this reminds me of the very first year that I went, in 2009, was the first year I started to serve. I was very, obviously very new, and I'm sitting in there, and all of a sudden Paul said, well, we got a call. I got a call from ironically, from the police union. And they said, we know you're going to have a tough year. We're not going to take a raise this year. This is them telling us they don't want a raise. And then shortly after, the DPW came in and said the same thing. So I have the confidence that people in the town will work with us to do whatever it takes to keep the ball rolling, to keep the economy solid. So from that point of view, but the other point of view you were talking about was you chaired the last charter review committee.
Yes, I did.
As a matter of fact, it was my vote, you were my vote to be on the board, and you chaired it.
Do you regret that vote?
I don't regret the vote. I just regret a vote. Maybe I don't regret anything, to be truthful, because listen, everybody's entitled to their opinion.
Right.
They have a reason for their decision, and we make good decisions. We make bad decisions. I'm not going to make every decision I make is not going to be correct. I don't think anybody will say this, that any of you would say that.
Amen. Absolutely
So,
right.
But four of us did go in front of you at the time. We were having a little bit of difficulty with some things, maybe relating to some committees and some decisions we thought we should be made, and maybe Paul wasn't in total agreement with us. And by the way, I think Paul is a very bright guy, very, very easy guy to talk to most of the time, and a very capable guy. And we worked it out back then. But when we came to you, there was a couple of things we wanted changed. And there were four of us that asked for it to be changed. And one came in and said they didn't want it changed. Well, as it turned out, you had a vote and it wasn't changed. And we don't have to go into details what the vote was about or anything else, okay? But then that was the last time it was ever brought up again. So I think maybe there should be, the charter review should be maybe done more frequently and discussed. And that doesn't mean anything would have happened. It was just that we had an opinion of something, and maybe we thought that we were being held up from doing something because we didn't have that. Maybe we didn't have that. We didn't have the majority of some things we were looking to change that we thought would help. There's five of us, so we're not all thinking alike either. The board, you got five people on the board, you got five different opinions a lot of times, right? So, I guess to put both of the questions together, as you kind of did, I think, when you mentioned should this, is the charter, you've asked about how the charter reacts, how we react to the charter. So, and what I would do is, maybe do it on a 5-year. We did it, I think, every 10 years we were doing it.
The protocol now is a formal review of the charter every 10 years. And
Right.
every town is supposed to do that. But just to amplify a little bit on what you said, the select board actually has the power to initiate any charter change, because all you have to do is put an article on the town warrant and get it before the...
Well, that was what I was going to suggest, that we take whatever, with your with the charter review recommendations to the town meeting, and let the people decide. You know what I mean? It's, but as far as, I'm sure that can all be worked out. But sometimes we run into a snag and it's a hang up, and then people get mad at, they get mad at each other, and personalities sometimes come into play, unfortunately. And you're dealing with $160 million. You're not talking about peanuts. You know what I mean? So, I would. That's why I would really like to see more people get involved and come to the meetings, get on different committees and talk to the people that are on the committees and bring some ideas in. I'd love to hear people's ideas.
Can I just
Go ahead.
I just want to jump in here and I think George hits a good point. So volunteerism has been waning in town for several years now. But even beyond that, though, I think for my purposes, if I were a select board member, one of the things that I don't see as much of today is liaison reports. And I think part of the select board's role is to not necessarily educate the community, but to inform the community as to the discussions going on within the community, because the select board should be aware of almost everything going on in town, and most select board members have liaisonships to various committees. And I don't see enough of that information communication that I'd like to see, just so that people aren't surprised by, like, for instance, I don't think there's been enough. I mean, I've been aware about the fire study for the 2 years that plus they've been in existence. I've been aware that there's a potential large MSBA project coming and things like that. And I'm not sure that the town understands, like, some of these things that are coming. I'm not sure the town understands that there's a big wrestling match going on over MBTA zoning right now. So
But there was
I
one
just
in the
don't
other
think-
room the other night.
Yeah, so but I don't think enough good information gets out to the town. So who can do that? We don't have good newspapers anymore.
Yeah, for
We
sure.
don't have that communicating effort, and I just think
You mean you don't want to
part
put
of
your trust in Facebook?
well,
I'm shocked.
Well,
Could I react to?
yeah, please.
Ironically, the two things that you brought up, I mean, we've had probably one of our best selectmen as the liaison of a member of the fire study. But most of that was supposed to be kept basically in almost like executive session. I don't think most of the, especially a lot of the stuff that because they were talking about maybe reducing. I know that you have attended some of their meetings, but I'm not.
Several,
So in the beginning, I think they were, and I don't even know how it came out, but they were going to try to go from 5 down to possibly 3 stations, and they were looking to buy different pieces of land and whatever. So as a result, that stuff couldn't be released at the time. No, I'm not saying you're wrong.
No, I understand, but that's the type of thing I think that should get brought to the community.
Probably should
for
be, but
discussion,
because of
George.
the-
That's the exact
the law.
type of thing that I think should be brought to the community for discussion. And it's unfortunate because the town, I don't feel, will have had the proper opportunity to weigh in
Okay.
on the project as it was being developed, and it's still working.
That's
I
what
mean,
I'm
it's
saying.
not
They
a
really
final-
didn't develop a plan yet, have they? Or have they?
No, but I think the discussion should have been brought to the community about the possibilities of going to 3 stations and the ramifications thereof, or going to 4 stations.
How
and the
long has that committee been
ramifications.
doing its work?
To the best of my knowledge, a little over 2.5 years,
So
probably.
within 2 years, I think it's reasonable to say that some feedback should have occurred, meaningful feedback. That's a long time for a committee to be in session.
Right. It's,
Of course, there was a lot more to that. It was in
Right.
depth. They were looking at various pieces of land. They were
sure,
negotiating with prices with people and stuff like that. It was-
George, you know, like, we and you assisted, I mean, we were out trying to get fire stations approved and
Oh, yeah.
school projects
Yeah, you
approved.
bought- I remember when you bought the
and we were-
DPW building.
Every town meeting, seemed like I was up there giving reports, just trying to inform the community.
Well, I 100%
you know,
agree
and
with you.
I
I'm
think
just
we
saying-
lack in some of that today.
I
Is
would-
my only point, you know.
I agree with you, and I might be one of the. Sometimes I don't give liaison reports, but some of them there's just nothing happened at some of the meetings. To be very frank with you,
True.
and then, but the and the other one was with the school. I don't know that was. I don't know who the liaison is with that one. So that was on whether or not we were going to be we were going to be on the short list or whatever to.
The MSP.
So we've
Yes.
been trying for years to get a high school.
And finally, we became a finalist now. We haven't got a.
You want to weigh in on this? We got a good discussion going.
Absolutely. So because I'd like to go back to something that I think Pat said that was important as well. I only knew that we were on that Jay was pushing for a high school because that's where the need was. And then my understanding was we were told there are too many other needs for high school, maybe a middle school. And again, I feel like I'm informed, and that's probably about all I know. And that's a little bit of a problem because that is a significant budget item coming up. I mean, that's not all state funded. The other thing I think that you said that's critically important is we need to communicate, but in today's day and age, Facebook, which I don't really feel is a reliable communication tool, but we are inundated with communication forms, and the board, I think, needs to find a way to break through that noise. I sat with a gentleman last night who's been in town for about as long as I am, a guy named Josh. Didn't know why he was at planning board, but he asked me, how do you find out about these things? Now, I fortunately found out about the text notifications early on, went and signed up, and it's my reminder. It links me to the agenda. That works for me. I know other people get thousands of texts, and it probably doesn't. But he ended up staying for the whole meeting, and I heard a lot in that meeting, and I think George may have seen it too, or Pat, you may have watched it. A lot of those folks were supposedly communicated to, and they were showing up for the first time, and they've had community meetings. They had one at the senior center. So there is definitely a communication issue, and I do think people need to be more aware, whether they like it or not, or whether the committees want to face the potential challenge, rightfully so, from the community. We need to find a way to break through that communication and get the critical stuff out. I learned things at the committee meeting, and one of the things I think Paul's good at, understanding what's going on at the State House. But I'm learning now that there's a lot of things that are going on in the State House that all of a sudden they show up on our doorstep and we're going to have to address. So that's another form of communication in two ways. One, for us to communicate to our constituents, but two, for us to be educated on what's going on at the State House, because MBTA is having a real impact, and we're only an adjacent community. We're not Bill Ricca with a train station. So that needs to somehow be in a priority with the list of about 7 other critical priorities that we break through that noise and get to folks.
So you've just led into something, I think we've touched upon it in the discussion, but what do you think is the most critical need facing the town in the short term? And how will that relate to the long term? So you mentioned things like MBTA zoning, which is a hot button. There are other issues coming up. So any thoughts on what you think the town needs to focus on immediately to get the biggest bang for the buck, so to speak? Aaron?
Again, I think, like I just said, I think there's 4, 5, 6, 7 priorities that are critical that we need to address kind of in the now. And I don't think I have the silver bullet or the right answer, but if you think about what people talk about, they talk about their taxes, they talk about infrastructure, they talk about traffic, they talk about housing and zoning, and I think something that Pat brought up that's super important is growth. I think those are all priorities on top of things like communication and liaisons that need to be set up in a way so that we can start finding measurable causes and solutions to those in the near future. And I have a little bit of a passion for growth because I think it's some of the solution to the revenue challenges, right? If we can fill some of that square footage.
You're talking about the growth of the commercial sector.
But I'm talking about overall growth of the town because I hear a lot of people say they want Chelmsford to be an affordable, livable community, and we want housing, but we don't want a zone for the density of the housing, which I totally appreciate and understand. So my philosophy on this overall growth, both commercial and residential, is we can either fight it tooth and nail and not have control over it, or we can embrace the fact that we are going to continue to grow because that's what towns do, and we're going to get bigger over time, and we can do it on our terms. And again, if we do it right, we can do it where it's revenue positive, and allow us to hopefully avoid any challenges coming up. I hear when I talk to people, or when I think about my own situation, those are all things that come to mind right now that are hot button issues. Again, we can't grow because we don't have stormwater sewer capacity. We need to spend this much money on kitchens for the school because they're so outdated. Again, I don't want to touch the third rail of zoning and and housing at the moment. And on top of all that, I think just those other things that we need to start being a little bit more friendly to those growth ideas, including business-friendly growth. I mean, Pat's made his living here, with a local business, and I'd like to see a little bit more of that. I unfortunately had my businesses outside of town. There was a hope to have them inside town, and I may have misinterpreted some advice or got incorrect advice and opted to look outside of town. But I don't want somebody to be in my situation again if they want to provide for the community, provide jobs, and live and work here. That's a personal one for me to see that happens.
Okay, George, biggest need, pressing need, priority?
Well, when I talk to people, they always bring up everything, Sam, that was just mentioned. Taxes, sewer capacity, traffic problems. We have a cut-through town. My opinion, the biggest problem in this town, we're going to have an election coming up another month. I guess we're in it, I guess. We'll probably get like a 12% or a 13% turnout.
If we're lucky.
Right.
All right? That tells me the biggest problem in this town right now is apathy. Somehow we got to wake the people up. Somehow we got to get to the people. Someone's got to take, we have to take charge. We got to get out there. We have to communicate with the people. We have to make the people feel like we're all in the same game together. I think sometimes all of us, maybe give them that we feel we're above them, which is certainly not anybody I know feels that way, or I do any business with. However, they don't get involved unless it's in their backyard. Now, when it's in their backyard, like, for example, and I'm not being disrespectful to the people, but when the deal was coming down on River Neck Road, they come out by the droves to stop, and I'm not saying they were wrong, but they came out. They got involved because it was affecting their neighborhood, their traffic, their roads. But nobody from North Chelmsford was over there. But when there's a problem in North Chelmsford, you don't see the people from the other place come over and fight for us. I think the people, everybody's got to get involved in this town, as many people as possible. And I think it's strictly, people just don't care unless it's in their backyard. I know everybody's got problems. Everybody's got financial problems, except a couple of you guys, but I have them. But most people don't have. You know what I mean? Most people have other problems, and they can't give this much time. So maybe we have to do a better job, but at the same time, we got to get them involved. 12% is not. It's not even close to being acceptable. 25 would be not even a good turnout. It would be all right, but it'd be a lot better than 12.
Mm-hmm. And you're right. It has gone down significantly over the years. Pat, any thoughts?
Well, I mean, following up on what both candidates have said here, so growth and progress is inevitable in town. And George is right, there is a fair amount of apathy. So I think one of the most important things to not belabor this, but I think in some ways this town being led by the select board needs to define who or what is the town of Chelmsford so that we can have an idea to move on. Because if we can at least get out and get a definition and draw in the people enough to give us an idea of where they want, are good schools important to you? Are you willing to pay up for good schools? Are you willing to pay up for good test scores? And just so that, the town has a better idea on how to navigate the coming growth and progress that's going to come. So, yes, there is a lot of apathy, but I think the town has been in this limbo mindset for a while that we really don't know, because we still hear the same thing. I've been here since '71. George, you're a lifelong townie, And we hear the same things from everybody. Like, you know, when I moved here, this was still a farming town, very much so.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and it's
I was in
changed
high school
over the
once.
years. But we're also not, we're not a Burlington, you know, and so we're a residential community for the most part. And
Yeah,
that's my
we're-
opinion, but I think we need to, as a town, come together and say, this is who we are and where we want to go.
I think Pat brings up, I feel like it was a perfect segue into a little bit of a shameless plug, because I wouldn't have articulated my words as well as he just did, in how I feel about, we need to get some of that identity around. We need to reach out to the constituents. As a proud election officer, it's crazy disappointing sometimes to see the lack of people coming in. And there's a very small group of people that are really driving this town of $160 million and 36,000 people. So I definitely, I preach all the time, please come and vote. I don't care what your vote is, but get informed and come make an informed vote, and then you can complain to me all day long and I'll listen to it. I think the strategic planning committee, which again, I know not everybody necessarily supports the idea behind it, but I think what you just said, Pat, is where that committee is going to go, and some of the things we've looked at what other towns did. I think that's going to, I'd like to think it's going to help define the go forward and help bring some of this alignment while still doing what I felt was important as part of the visions and values, you know, maintaining that legacy of our past and build upon what was there. And it's not about forgetting it, and it's not about moving on, but we're not going to be a farming community ever again. That's just not it. But we can always pay respect to that in terms of where we're growing. So again, I think that committee, and we're just about ready for the RFP to hit the road and to get this consultant in. And I think the people sitting around that table is a really good mix of the community right now. But I think you're going to be, I'm confident people are going to be impressed with the outreach that's going to happen once this is signed. And it's the opportunity for people, for George to speak up even if they don't vote. It's the opportunity for them to say, okay, this is where we want, and it's going to be longtime residents, it's going to be new residents, it's going to be retirees, it's going to be people like me that, you know, bought a house and said, we'll move to Chelmsford in 5 years, and then it took 15 to eventually get there, but we got here. And I encourage people, you know, be ready, because it's going to be coming out to you, and come to our meetings, share your voice, because they are public and they are open.
Okay, good enough. We're running out of time. I'm going to give each of you just a few seconds. I want each of you to look into the camera, such as it is, and ask for the vote. So, Pat?
Thank you. Again,
I'll cut you off, so go ahead.
thanks again. My name is Patrick Maloney, and I am a candidate for Select Board on April 2nd, so I'd be honored and most respectfully request one of your 2 votes for Select Board on April 2nd. And I believe I'm highly qualified to fit right into this board and get right to work for you.
Aaron?
Again, Aaron Cunningham, also candidate for Select Board. And please come out and vote. Unfortunately, it'll be an election I will not be able to support as I'm on the ballot. And do me a favor, reach out to me. I like the outreach. I want to hear what your thoughts are, because in the event that I do win a spot on this, I work for you. So come on out on April 2nd and cast one of your votes for me, please.
Okay. Last word to our incumbent. George, go ahead.
Well, I mean, again, I've been here 15 years. I'd like to continue. I've enjoyed it very much. I've met a lot of people. I think I've accomplished a few things, and I'd like to accomplish some more. But I will say, and I would appreciate one of your 2 votes, and I commend the other people here for stepping up, as I said before. The most important thing is for all of you to get out and vote. That would be a big win for the town. Whoever wins, getting more people out would be a big win.
Yeah.
Well said, and thank you very much, Joe, and we are now out of time. Goes fast, doesn't it? Thank you.